Dust motes danced in the thin attic light, the air thick with old wood and silence that pressed too close. I wiped my brow, hands gritty from boxes, the weight of the day settling like silt in my chest. I'm Amelia, a queer single mom scraping by, my adopted daughter Ellie pulling me through mornings with her wide eyes and endless questions. Bills stacked higher than I could reach, childcare a constant scramble. This cleaning gig at the dusty estate was my out, a way to cover rent without begging. But isolation clung, discrimination's quiet judgments, the ache for real connection amid motherhood's grip. My fingers brushed a forgotten chest in the shadows, heart thudding. Something shifted. The alarm cut through at dawn, sharp as gravel under tires. I slapped it silent, lay there a beat, the apartment's chill seeping into my bones. Ellie stirred next door, her small coughs pulling me up. Adopted at 2, she carried questions in her curls, eyes that searched mine for answers I half hid. "Mommy, why no other moms like us?" she'd ask sometimes, voice soft over breakfast. I'd hug her tight, say we're enough, but the words tasted like dust. Coffee brewed black, steam curling rough against the cold mug. I poured cereal, her spoon clinking the bowl, milk splashing white rings. Finances pinched every move. Rent due, daycare fees eating half my check from the office job. Single mom pay stretched thin. No cushion for Ellie's art supplies or the doctor's copay from last month's fever. I kept my queer self tucked away at work. Nods to straight colleagues about family nights that never happened. Subtle slights lingered. A raised brow at my ringless hand. Whispers when I mentioned adoption papers. It wore on me, that guard, like calluses from lifting alone. Drop-off was a rush. Her backpack bounced as we hurried down the hall, my hand in hers, warm and sticky from juice. The center's door buzzed open, other kids waving, but Ellie's grip tightened. Pick me up early? Always that pull, her needs threading through my shifts. I kissed her forehead, promised, then subway bound, the train's rattle matching my pulse. Office waitress, filing, phones, smiles that hid the ache. Lunch was a granola bar at the desk, bills app open, red balances glaring. Another late fee loomed. I couldn't afford the slip. The ad caught me scrolling that evening, Ellie asleep under her quilt. Cleaning side gig, old estate on the rural edge. Cash under the table, flexible hours around pickup. Isolation mirrored my own. Far from city eyes, no judgments on my life. I applied quick, voice steady on the call, heart thudding at the yes. It meant more time juggling, but Ellie's daycare spot held, and rent wouldn't wait. Past loves flickered. Women who'd faded under family stares, leaving me to motherhood's solo weight. Craved touch that saw me whole, queer and worn, but safety first for her. Next morning blurred the same, but with keys in hand. Ellie chattered from the backseat. "Where are we going, Mommy?" "Estates way," I said, her imagination spinning tales of ghosts. City faded to fields, horns to wind through corn, my knuckles white on the wheel. Uncertainty settled heavy, like the gravel road crunching under tires. What if the work broke me more? But Ellie's giggle cut it, her hand reaching forward. The estate loomed, weathered facade sagging under vines, air heavy with earth and forgotten rain. I parked, gravel spitting, grabbed my supplies, buckets, rags, gloves rough against skin. Door creaked open to dim halls, dust hanging like old regrets. The owner gone, family handling cleanup, instructions taped sparse. I started low, wiping counters that felt like silt under cloth, mind on Ellie's afternoon pickup. Motherhood tugged constant, phone buzzing a reminder. This gig bought breath, but the quiet amplified my guards. Queer edges hidden, finances a noose. Yet something in the air hummed, pulling toward the stairs. Sweat beaded by noon, muscles aching from boxes in the hall. Faded photos lined walls, straight-laced faces staring. No room for lives like mine. I paused, rag dripping, longing for connection that didn't judge. Ellie's face flashed, her adoption joys mixed with my fears of world's grit. Pushed on toward the attic ladder, wood groaning underfoot. The pull grew, shadows waiting. The floors creaked under my boots, each step echoing like a warning in the empty hall. Dust stirred with every movement, fine particles catching the light from cracked windows, settling on my skin like a second layer of weariness. I paused at the faded photos lining the walls. Stern faces in sepia tones, collars starched high. Families posed rigid with no room for softness. Straight-laced lives, the kind that judged from frames, making my own feel smaller, hidden. I turned away, rag in hand, but the weight lingered, a reminder of the eyes that once narrowed at me during adoption hearings, whispering about unfit choices for Ellie. I started with the lower rooms, sorting through boxes stacked haphazard in corners, their cardboard softened by years of damp. Sweat beaded on my forehead in the stifling heat, the air trapped and heavy, no breeze to cut through. I lifted one, muscles straining from the morning's rush and last night's double shift, contents spilling. Old linens yellowed, silverware tarnished, like forgotten promises. Motherhood pulled at me even here, a constant tug. Ellie's face flashed in my mind, her small hand waving goodbye at drop-off, the daycare's fluorescent hum echoing. I checked my phone mid-lift, no messages yet, but the clock ticked toward pickup, finances a shadow over every minute. One wrong delay, and fees piled higher, no buffer for her cough syrup or new shoes. As I wiped down a mantle, my sleeve caught a drawer, half hidden behind a drape. It slid open with a rasp, revealing yellowed clippings, obituaries, land deeds, a faded invitation to some long-gone event. Whispers of the estate's past hung in the air, secretive and thick, like the silence after a door shuts too hard. I sifted gently, fingers tracing edges worn smooth, sensing layers buried deeper than dust. The deceased owner, a woman who'd lived alone here, her story veiled in these remnants. It stirred something in me, a quiet echo of my own guarded life. Queer edges tucked away from prying views, the discrimination that followed like silt in shallow water. Ellie's voice echoed in my head then, from last week's bedtime. "Mommy, why don't we have two moms, like in that story?" Her eyes wide, innocent, pulling at the threads I kept knotted. I'd hugged her close, said, "Some families are just us." But the question lingered, a flash of past hurts. The aunt who'd pulled away after the adoption, muttering about natural ways. Or the playground stairs when I held her hand too long. Identity tension coiled tight. Here, in this house, alone with its ghosts, it loosened a fraction, but never fully. I was her anchor, queer mom navigating a world that straightened paths. Finances binding me to gigs like this just to keep the lights on. The heat pressed harder, my shirt clinging damp to my back as I moved to the parlor. More boxes, heavier ones this time, filled with books, spines cracked, pages brittle under my touch. I sorted methodically, stacking what to keep, bagging the rest, sweat trickling down my temples. Childcare worries nipped at the edges. Would the center hold her an extra hour if I ran late? Ellie's adopted needs meant extra forms, extra calls, no family backup to share the load. I longed for that genuine touch, someone to lean into after these days, a hand that understood the ache without words. But solitude was safer, walls up against more loss. By midday, I wiped my brow with a rag corner, the fabric rough against skin, and sank onto a stool. Phone out again, a quick text to the sitter. "All good?" Her reply buzzed back fast. Ellie drawing. Happy. Relief washed brief. But the longing deepened, a quiet throb for connection beyond motherhood's demands. The estate's hush amplified it. No voices to drown the pull. Subtle hints everywhere. A locket in that drawer, initials entwined, E and M, hinting at loves unspoken in this straight world. I stood, stretching sore arms, and eyed the attic stairs across the hall. The ladder waited, rungs dusty and narrow, the unknown above drawing me closer. Heart thudding steady, I gripped the sides, wood groaning under my weight as I climbed. Shadow swallowed the light, the air cooler but thicker, secrets waiting in the dim. The attic air hit cooler, carrying a musty tang that clung to my throat like old regrets. Dim light filtered through a single grimy window, dust motes swirling lazy in the beams, turning everything gold and ghostly. Crates stacked high against the slanted walls, their wood warped and splintered, like buried secrets piled too long in the dark. I stepped forward, boots scuffing the rough planks, the floor creaking under my weight as if protesting the intrusion. Cobwebs brushed my arm, fine threads sticking, and I shivered, not just from the chill seeping through my thin shirt. I set my bucket down with a soft thud, the sound swallowed quick by the hush. Muscles already aching from the lower rooms, from mornings wrestling Ellie's backpack and evenings scrubbing counters after daycare runs. I knelt by the first crate. Single mom shifts left no room for rest. My hands, calloused from gripping mop handles and steering wheels through rush hour jams, sifted through the contents. Yellowed newspapers crumbled at the edges. Headlines faded to whispers of wars long past. Photographs tumbled out next. Women in stiff dresses, arms linked formal, but their eyes held something softer, unspoken. I paused, fingers tracing a face that mirrored my own guarded pull, the kind that hid queer truths under straight world smiles. Deeper in, linens folded neat but moth-eaten, their fabric rough against my palms, releasing a faint lavender scent buried under dust. Finances flickered in my mind. Every hour here meant bills paid, Ellie's adopted paperwork fees covered without another loan. But the ache pulled stronger, motherhood's shadow lengthening. She'd be napping now at the center, her curls splayed on a cot, trusting I'd fetch her on time. No room for slip-ups, not with adoption visits looming, social workers noting every detail of our stable life. I pushed on, unpacking methodical, stacking what seemed worthless into trash bags that rustled like dry leaves. The chest waited in the corner, larger than the rest. Its lid heavy oak, etched with faint carvings. Vines twisting, almost like entwined hands. I wedged it open, hinges groaning low, and leaned in. Inside, more papers, bundled with twine gone brittle. My hands delved, sifting slow, when something shifted uneven under a layer of ledgers. A false bottom, wood panel loose, giving way with a soft crack. Heart thudding now, I lifted it aside, revealing a slim envelope, yellowed at the corners, sealed with wax cracked like old skin. The scent rose faint, faded ink and rosewater, pulling me closer. I slid it careful, paper rasping against my thumbnail, and unfolded the sheets. Handwriting sloped elegant, words spilling in black loops. My dearest, in this house of shadows, your touch is the only light. We've stolen moments by the river, hands clasped under moonlight, but the world demands we hide. Your letters burn like fire in my chest, promising a love the straight paths can't touch. Forbidden love between women, raw and urgent, her passion leaping off the page. Stolen kisses in barns, whispers against discrimination's grit. A life yearning for authenticity amid rural isolation. My heart slammed against my ribs, breath catching sharp. It echoed my own hidden desires, the women I'd loved in fleeting nights only to lose to judgments that sliced deep. Family turning away after Ellie's birth, calling it unnatural for a queer mom to raise her alone. The author's ache mirrored mine, that pull for connection beyond motherhood's demands, for hands that understood the weight without words. Tears pricked, hot and sudden as I read on, her words warming my skin like a touch long denied. Ellie flashed, her bedtime hugs, the way she'd curl into me, needing stability I fought daily to provide. This letter stirred dreams I'd buried, of sharing the load, queer and whole. I folded it quick, the paper crinkling soft, and slipped it into my pocket, close against my chest. The attic felt heavier now, secrets, pressing. I descended the stairs, ladder rung slick under my palms, air thickening with revelation's weight. The drive home blurred under streetlights, the estate's gravel road fading into the city's hum. But the letter burned against my thigh, a weight heavier than the day's dust. Ellie's daycare pickup waited, her face lighting when I waved through the gate, curls bouncing as she ran to me. "Mommy, we made clay today!" Her hand slipped into mine, small and trusting, pulling me from the attic's shadows. We stopped for takeout, noodles steaming in paper boxes, her giggles over tangled forks easing the knot in my chest. Finances nipped at the edges. This meal stretched the budget, but her smile was worth the math later. Bath time followed, bubbles foaming high in the tub, her splashes soaking my sleeves as I knelt on the tile. Water beaded on her skin, warm and slick, while I washed her hair, fingers massaging shampoo into the roots. She leaned back, eyes closed, trusting the routine that anchored us. Adopted needs meant these moments doubled. Extra reassurance, stories of families like ours woven into the suds. Two moms can be strong too, I'd whisper sometimes. Her nod sleepy but sure. Bedtime came quick after. Her door cracked as I tucked the quilt around her shoulders, the room soft with nightlight glow. She clutched her stuffed bear, breaths evening out, leaving me alone with the quiet apartment's creaks. I sank onto the couch, the spring sighing under me, and pulled the envelope from my pocket. Lamplight spilled yellow across the pages, casting long shadows on the walls scarred from hurried moves. The paper felt rough under my fingers, edges frayed like calloused hands after field work, its texture grounding me as I unfolded it slow. Faded ink stared back, the author's words looping elegant but urgent, pulling me in like a current I couldn't fight. She wrote of rural isolation, the estate's walls closing in after her love fled under family's glare. The fields stretch endless, but your absence carves deeper than any plow, she penned. Stolen touches by the riverbank, described in strokes that warmed my palms. Fingers interlacing under willow branches, breaths mingling hot against necks in hidden barns. Glances across dinner tables, loaded with unspoken want. Discrimination's grit grinding slow. Whispers from neighbors, church doors shutting on their joined hands. The world demanding straight lines where curves threaten to break. Her lover's letters answered in kind. Promises smuggled in laundry folds. But fear won. Separation's ache echoing in every creak of the house alone. My breath caught, the words sinking like silt, mirroring heartbreaks I'd buried deep. That woman in my 20s, soft-spoken with eyes that saw my queer edges without flinching. Gone when her parents called our nights sin. Another after Ellie's adoption, her hand warm in mine during hearings. But she pulled away when judgments landed. Coworkers side-eyeing my lifestyle choice. Forms questioning single-parent fitness. Queer motherhood fears resurfaced, sharp, a throb in my throat. What if the world took Ellie? Deemed me unfit for loving women amid the bills and daycare scrambles. The letter's passion stirred it all, her craving for authenticity clashing with my safe solitude, walls built high for her sake. I traced the lines, paper crinkling soft, its roughness evoking hands I'd longed for. Steady, knowing the pull of hidden lives. Words warmed my skin, flushing heat up my arms, as if her touch lingered through the ink. Isolation's weight pressed, but so did the dream of sharing it. Mornings with another voice reading to Ellie, evenings where finances split lighter, romance weaving through motherhood's demands without shame. Yet doubt coiled. Craving that authenticity meant risking the guards I'd raised, exposing us to more silt, more stares. Ellie's soft snore from the hall grounded me. She needed stability, not my heart's reckless reach. The clock ticked past midnight, lamp buzzing faint, but I folded the pages careful, sealing them back. Sleep tugged, but dreams waited, laced with river whispers and eyes meeting across dusty rooms. Next morning, the estate called again, letter tucked close in my pocket, burning like a secret pulse. I dropped Ellie at daycare, her wave lingering in the rearview, and drove out, eyes scanning the horizon for clues in the fading fields. Home pulled me back that evening, the apartment's door clicking shut like a sigh after the estate's vast quiet. Ellie waited with the sitter, her drawings scattered across the table, stick figures of us holding hands under suns that bled crayon red. I paid her quick, Bill's app open on my phone, the balance dipping lower with every transfer. Childcare costs gnawed constant. Ellie's adopted status meaning extra fees for extended hours, no grandparents to spell me during fevers or school closures. I scooped her up, her legs wrapping my waist, warm breath against my neck. Missed you, Mommy. Those words thawed the drive's chill, but finances shadowed every hug, rent notices stacking like unread letters. Dinner was simple, rice and beans from the pantry, steam rising thin in the dim kitchen light. She chattered about daycare friends, her spoon waving arcs that splashed sauce on the counter. I wiped it absently, mind drifting to the letter's words tucked safe in my bag. Bedtime routine anchored us. Bathwater sloshing, her giggles echoing off tiles as bubbles clung to her elbows. I dried her curls with a towel rough from too many washes, then stories under the quilt, my voice low over pages of families adventuring together. Ellie's eyes drooped, but she'd cling. One more? Adopted needs wove through these nights, reassuring her place in our world, the forms and visits that proved I was enough. Yet juggling it solo left bones aching. No shared whispers after lights out. Lying in bed later, the ceiling's cracks stared back, shadows shifting with streetlight bleed. Queer themes pressed in the dark, subtle slights from the office replaying. A coworker's pause when I dodged weekend plans, her smile tight at mentions of Ellie's other parent forms left blank. Family judgments cut deeper. My sister's calls sparse since the adoption, her voice edged with concern about raising a girl without a traditional setup, eyes narrowing at gatherings over my ringless hand. Discrimination's silt settled slow. Not loud accusations, but the quiet exclusion. Playground moms clustering away, their kids' questions about why no dad hanging unanswered. I kept walls high, queer identity a private flame, flickering for Ellie's sake amid the world's straightening gaze. The letter fueled it all, its pages unfolding in my mind like a river bending. The author's romance stirred dreams I'd locked away. Intimate connection, hands linking without fear. A love that saw the queer mom beneath the exhaustion. Her words of stolen touches by water's edge warmed my chest, promising a shared load. Mornings splitting daycare drop-offs, evenings where finances eased with 2 incomes, romance threading through motherhood's weave. I imagined it, eyes closed. Waking to breath beside me, Ellie's laughter drawing us closer. No more hiding edges. Yet the pull clashed hard with guarded reality. Opening up meant risking stares, more judgments slicing at our fragile stability. What if a partner's family echoed the past, pulling away like silt in flood, leaving Ellie to question again? Tension built in my throat, a quiet throb. Protecting her from the world's grit meant solitude's armor, but yearning gnawed, for arms that held without explanation, for validation in queer warmth amid the pinch. The letter whispered possibility, her passion a mirror to my ache, fueling fantasies of open love where motherhood bloomed shared. Sleep came fitful, dreams laced with riverbanks and faces half seen, the estate waiting. Morning light filtered gray through curtains, Ellie's cough pulling me from bed. Daycare drop-off rushed, her hand tight in mine, the center's door buzzing shut behind her wave. I drove out again, fields unfolding, the letter's weight in my pocket a steady pulse. Finances urged me on. Another shift meant bills met. But isolation cracked faint under the dreams. The estate appeared, vines heavy on its frame. And as I parked, gravel crunching, a truck pulled up beside. A woman stepped out, broad-shouldered in flannel, eyes scanning the house like it held answers. Our gazes met brief, a pull toward that human warmth, cutting the quiet sharp. She moved with a purpose that cut the estate's stillness, boots thudding soft on the gravel as she rounded the truck. Broad-shouldered in faded flannel that hung loose over jeans worn at the knees, her hair tied back in a practical knot, strands escaping like questions she hadn't answered yet. Eyes guarded, dark and scanning the house's sagging eaves, as if measuring losses in the peeling paint. I froze by my car door, supply still in hand, the letter's weight shifting in my pocket like a secret heartbeat. This was Emma, the niece overseeing the cleanup. Her voice on the initial call low and direct, no frills, just the facts of the job and the deadlines pressing like unpaid bills. She turned then, gaze landing on me, holding a beat too long. Dust swirled faint between us, carried on the breeze from the fields, settling on her sleeves like silt from a disturbed riverbed. "You must be the cleaner," she said, extending a hand rough from work, calluses pressing into my palm as we shook. Her voice carried frayed edges, low and steady, but threaded with something worn. like ropes pulled too tight over years. Awkwardness hung in the air, thick as the heat rising from the ground. I nodded, wiping my free hand on my jeans, the fabric sticking damp to my skin. Amelia, starting today. Words clipped, my own guard up, finances flashing. Every minute here counted toward Ellie's daycare extension. No room for chit-chat that delayed the work. We moved inside together, the door creaking wider under her push, shadows stretching across the hall like unspoken histories. She explained the tasks quick. Sort the attic last, catalog valuables for the estate sale, trash the rest. Her steps echoed mine on the creaking floors, close enough that our arm brushed the wall near my shoulder in the narrow passage. Initial exchange stayed surface. Where to start, which rooms off limits, her pointing out a locked study with a key that jingled heavy on her chain. But glances shared pulled deeper, beats lingering when our eyes met over a stack of boxes. Hers searching, mine flickering away, sensing mutual hidden depths. Echoes of discrimination there, in the subtle hunch of her shoulders, the way she scanned the faded photos as if seeing judgments etched in the frames. Straight-laced stares that narrowed on lives like ours. Subtle connections sparked as we worked side by side in the parlor, her hauling heavier crates while I dusted shelves, the air humming with the scrape of wood and our breaths sinking uneven. "You do this full time?" she asked, voice breaking the quiet, wiping sweat from her brow with a forearm that revealed a faint scar, pale against tan skin. I paused, rag paused mid-swipe, the cloth gritty with dust. "Side gig. Got a daughter, adopted. Keeps things tight. Daycare eats the rest." Honesty slipped out, unbidden. Her nod slow, eyes softening a fraction. "Ellie. She's 6. Asks questions that twist you up." Finance is woven natural, mentioning the scramble for copays, the extra forms for her status, no backup when school calls early. Emma listened, leaning against a table scarred from years, her flannel shifting to show the curve of her collarbone, damp with effort. "Sounds heavy. I oversee places like this for family. Lost my aunt last year. No kids of my own, but the weight, it sticks." Her words carried her own silt, questions probing gentle. How long single? What brought me out here? Brushing close in the hall later, passing tools, her hip grazed mine accidental, warmth lingering through denim, pulling a flush up my neck. Romance sparked slow, the air humming with unspoken want. Letters' words lingering in my mind like echoes. Stolen touches, forbidden lights. Her laugh came dry once, self-deprecating, at a spiderweb catching her hair. City girl trying ranch life. And I smiled, the sound easing my chest, sensing a shared pull toward authenticity amid the guards. Eyes met again over lunch, sandwiches unwrapped on a dusty sill. Her knee inches from mine, the proximity electric. Discrimination's old scars humming beneath. The women we'd hidden for, lost to stares or silences. Motherhood threaded it, my thoughts drifting to Ellie's trusting grip, craving a connection that shared the load without shattering our world. Yet the spark warmed, tentative, her gaze holding mine like a promise half-formed. Evening fell as I packed up, the sun dipping low through vines, casting her face in gold. "See you tomorrow," she said, voice low, frayed edge softening. I drove home, Ellie waiting with crayons and stories, but alone later, lamp spilling over the letter, I unfolded it again. Author's passion blended with Emma's face, eyes guarded yet pulling, hands rough with potential touch. Heart thudding, dreams stirred of rivers and revelations, the estate waiting sharper now. Days blurred into a rhythm at the estate, the air thick with dust and the steady scrape of our efforts. Emma arrived early each morning, her truck rumbling up the drive before my car crunched gravel behind. We'd start collaborative, dividing rooms without words, her hauling crates from the basement, me sorting attic remnants, our paths crossing constant in the narrow halls. Hands brushed once over a heavy box, her calluses rough against my knuckles, the contact lingering like warmth through silt. I pulled back slow, pulse thudding faint, but she didn't flinch, just nodded toward the stack, voice low. Teamwork makes it lighter. Stories slipped then, unbidden, as we wiped shelves side by side, rags dragging over wood scarred deep. Single lives unfolded in fragments, her managing rural properties after her aunt's passing, no partner to share the endless calls or late-night inventories, me juggling office hours with this gig, Ellie's daycare extensions eating every extra dollar. Finances bound us closer, her admitting the estate's debts pressing like unpaid loans, my own confessions of scraping for Ellie's adoption fees, the copays that left cupboards bare some weeks. Motherhood wove in natural during quieter lifts, her empathy quiet, but steady. I shared Ellie's adopted joys over a break, leaning against a doorframe, the wood cool on my back. Her first school drawing of us as supermoms, curls wild on paper, pulling laughs from my chest, despite the world's grit. Emma nodded, eyes softening in the dim light, her flannel sleeve brushing my arm as she set down a crate. Sounds like she sees you clear. My aunt raised me some after my folks split. Taught me holding on matters more than the stairs. No pity, just recognition. Her voice frayed at edges, mirroring my own pull to protect Ellie from judgments that nipped like cold wind. Childcare strains surfaced too. Me explaining the scramble for sitters during fevers, no family net to catch us. Her listening with a tilt of her head, broad shoulders easing as if sharing the weight. Adopted or not, she's lucky. Takes grit to build that alone. The words warmed, threading romance's slow build. Her gaze holding mine a beat, the estate's hush amplifying the spark. Identity layers peeled back in whispers. Past loves lost to bias, surfacing like buried roots. As we cleared a study, sunlight slanting through cracked panes, I admitted a heartbreak. The woman who'd held my hand through adoption hearings, only to fade when her church family called our life twisted paths. Discrimination's silt clung in the telling, subtle cuts from coworkers' pauses, family gatherings where eyes slid away from my queer edges. Emma paused, duster in hand, her breath catching. Mine left for similar, boss demanding proper images, her pulling back to fit. Left me with echoes in empty houses. Finances tied it tighter, her estate woes echoing my tight months, bonds forming in the shared ache of hiding for survival. No loud revelations, just nods over faded ledgers, her hand steadying mine on a wobbling shelf, tentative touch sending heat up my arm. Intimate moments bloomed in the lulls, shared lunch breaks on the porch steps, sandwiches unwrapped on laps, the field stretching gold under noon sun. Laughter came dry, self-deprecating at the estate's quirks. A mouse darting from a drawer, her yelp turning to a chuckle that pulled one from me. City grit meets country ghosts. Her knee pressed mine accidental, denim warm, lingering without retreat, the air humming with unspoken want. Touches grew tentative, fingers grazing as we passed tools, her wiping dust from my cheek with a thumb rough and gentle, eyes dark pools reflecting my own guarded pull. Attraction built slow, the letter in my pocket a bridge to vulnerability, its words of forbidden lights echoing in her nearness, stirring dreams of hands linking without fear. Rising tension coiled in my chest, heart thudding steadier each day, the pull toward her authenticity clashing with motherhood's anchors, Ellie's trusting waves at drop-off, the finances demanding I stay walled. Yet Emma's presence eased it, her quiet strength promising shared loads, queer warmth amid the strains. We worked late one afternoon, shadows lengthening, when her phone buzzed sharp from her pocket. She answered, voice cracking sudden, frayed like rope snapping. What, now? Face paling, she sank against the wall, eyes distant. I stepped close, hand on her arm, the pull to help undeniable. Warmth spreading despite the unknown storm. Her phone buzzed again, insistent, vibrating against the wall where she leaned. Emma's face drained further, the color leaching like water from silt, her free hand gripping the doorframe until knuckles whitened. The bank's calling in the loan, estate's mortgage deep, debts from my aunt's medical years, piling since she passed. Her voice cracked, frayed threads unraveling, eyes distant, as if seeing ledgers balancing red across the fields. Isolation cracked wide then, the estate's vast quiet mirroring her alone in it. No one to shoulder the sale's pressure, forcing pieces of family history into strangers' hands, the house that held her aunt's guarded life slipping away. I stepped closer, my hand still on her arm, feeling the tremor run through her muscle, warm and unsteady under my palm. Dust hung suspended in the late light, the air thickening with her unraveling, pulling me into the storm. I didn't hesitate. Rearranged my schedule on the spot, texting the office about a family emergency. The lie tasting bitter, but necessary. Childcare scramble hit next. Ellie's daycare closed soon, no sitter free on short notice. Finances flashing warnings of overtime fees if I stretched it. But Emma's eyes met mine, raw and pleading, and I nodded, heart thudding. I'll handle it. Give me an hour. Drove home through gathering clouds, rain starting as fat drops on the windshield, wipers slapping rhythm like my pulse. Picked Ellie up early, her backpack heavy with drawings, confusion wrinkling her brow. Mommy, why home now? Work thing turned personal, I said, buckling her in, the seat warm from her small body. We looped back, rain sheeting harder, fields blurring to gray, my knuckles tight on the wheel. Adopted needs meant explaining soft. Her questions about helping friends, my assurances we'd be quick. But inside, the pull tightened. Motherhood clashing with this new risk. Yet Emma's fray called louder than caution. Arrived soaked, the estate's porch dripping. Ellie clutching my hand as we dashed inside. Emma waited in the kitchen, papers spread across the scarred table, her flannel damp from earlier drizzle, shoulders hunched over numbers that wouldn't bend. This is Ellie, I said, voice low, guiding her forward. Emma looked up, eyes red-rimmed but softening at the sight. Ellie's curls frizzing from rain, her wave tentative. Hey, kiddo. Heard you like drawing. Ellie nodded shy, pulling a crayon from her pocket, offering it like a bridge. Emma took it, fingers brushing hers gentle, a faint smile cracking through the strain. They sketched quick on scrap paper, Ellie's chatter easing the room's tension, tentative bond forming amid the chaos. Emma's laugh dry at a lopsided house, Ellie's giggle pulling her closer, motherhood's warmth threading unexpected. I watched, chest swelling, the sight grounding me as rain hammered the roof. Emotional support unfolded as Ellie wandered to a corner with her paper, colors blooming under lamplight. I sank beside Emma, the chair creaking, and took her hand across the table. Hers trembled, calluses rough against my skin, but she clasped back, fingers interlacing tight. Tears came then, hot tracks down her cheeks, mixing with confessions spilling raw. Aunt hid everything. Loves, debts, the queer parts she buried under this roof. Neighbors whispered. Family cut ties when she wouldn't straighten, left me holding the silt alone. Her voice broke, sobs quiet but deep, vulnerability cracking wide. I held her hand steady, thumb tracing her knuckle, my own eyes stinging. Queer pains echoed mine, hidden touches lost to judgments, the ache of loving women in worlds that demanded masks. I know that weight, I whispered, leaning closer, rain's rhythm matching our breaths. Adoption hearings, stares calling me unfit, family fading when I wouldn't hide Ellie and me. Tears mingled as she turned, forehead to mine, confessions weaving. Her past lover fleeing rural bias, my heart breaks under city lights. Isolation's grit binding us in the dim kitchen glow. Romance ignited slow, the air humming charged. Her breath warmed my lips, eyes searching mine through tears, the pull undeniable. I tilted forward, lips brushing hers tentative, salt tasting on her skin. She responded, hand cupping my neck, the kiss deepening, gentle, warmth spreading like river silt settling deep. Bodies leaned in, her flannel rough under my palms, heat building unhurried amid the papers and rain. We pulled back breathless, foreheads pressed. Her smile faint but real, the ignition sparking hope through the crisis. Immediate strain eased as we mapped options, calling a lawyer friend of hers, delaying the sale with proofs of value. Ellie yawned from her spot, drawing forgotten, the tentative meat weaving her into the warmth. Letters reveal loomed in my pocket, hearts thudding toward truth, the night settling softer despite the storm. Rain eased to a drizzle as we cleared the table, papers folded neat, Ellie's drawings tucked beside them like fragile bridges. She yawned again, curls damp against her neck, and I scooped her up, her weight settling warm on my hip. Time for home, kiddo. Emma stood, hand lingering on the chair back, her eyes tracing us both. Soft now, the crisis's edge dulled but not gone. Let me help, she said, voice low, frayed threads mending slow. We bundled into my car, Ellie dozing in the back, the drive quiet under streetlights smearing wet. Dropped her at the sitter's spare room, a quick kiss to her forehead, the extra fee stinging but worth the night's hold. Back at the estate, porch light spilling faint, Emma waited, flannel sleeves rolled, arms crossed against the chill. We moved to the kitchen again. Mug steaming with tea from a tin she'd found, the scent herbal and grounding, cutting the damp air. My pocket weighed heavy, the letter's edges pressing like unspoken truth. Heart thudding steady, I pulled it out, envelope yellowed under the lamp's glow. Found this in the attic, false bottom in a chest. Her brow furrowed, fingers reaching as I unfolded the pages, ink loops stark against the paper's roughness. She scanned the first lines, breath catching sharp, eyes widening like silt stirred clear. That's her handwriting. My great aunt. The one who built this place alone. Recognition hit her face, raw and sudden, pulling a hand to her mouth. Shared history spilled then, the letter tying our families like roots under the same soil. Author's love story unfolded in her words. Emma's great aunt, hidden queer life in these walls. Her lover, a neighbor woman who'd fled under rural bias. Church whispers and family cuts slicing deep. She never spoke of it, Emma whispered, tracing the signature E.M., her voice cracking. Burned most traces, but this, she kept this. Discrimination's scars bared raw, neighbors turning backs at markets, letters returned unopened, the estate a refuge turned prison after loss. I nodded, hand finding hers across the table, calluses meeting calluses, warmth spreading slow. Mirrors my own, adoption stares calling me wrong, family fading when I chose her, us over hiding. Queer pains wove tight, our pasts echoing. Her aunt's stolen river touches lost to judgments, my heartbreaks under city lights, single motherhood's grit binding us in the hush. Intimate climax built quiet, confessions slipping like breath on glass. Been seeking this, Emma said, eyes holding mine, dark pools reflecting the lamp's flicker. Authentic pull, someone seeing the edges without straightening them. Her thumb traced my palm, gentle, heat rising unbidden. I leaned in, lips meeting hers again, deeper now, salt from earlier tears mixing with tea's warmth. Hands explored tentative, mine on her neck, hers cupping my face, the kiss solidifying romance in authentic embrace, bodies pressing close against the table's edge. Warmth flooded, her flannel rough under my fingers, pulse thudding shared, the world's silt falling away in that hold. No rush, just truth unfolding. Queer desires met without masks, motherhood's weight easing in the promise of shared arms. Motherhood validation came soft as we pulled back, foreheads touching, breaths mingling. Ellie needs this too, I murmured, her nod firm. Blended support, daycare splits, finances lighter with two. She smiled faint, hand squeezing mine. We'll navigate the forms, the visits, make it ours. Tight budgets flashed, her estate sale delayed now, proceeds pooling for Ellie's art classes, co-pays covered without scramble. Adopted needs met stronger, her presence a net against fevers or school calls, no more solo juggle. Healing arcs bloomed, from guarded isolation to trusting connection, my walls crumbling under her steady gaze, identity affirmed in the quiet kitchen glow. Queer warmth wrapped us, no more hiding edges, romance threading motherhood's weave like light through dust. Final quiet moment settled, air lighter, mugs cooling untouched. We stepped outside, night crisp, stars pricking the clouds. Hands linked loose, the estate's silhouette softening behind, steps toward shared future thudding steady on gravel. Hands linked under the attic's dim light days later, dust settling into peace like silt finding riverbed. No more hiding. Queer motherhood's warmth bloomed shared. Ellie's laughter weaving us tighter. If this resonated with your own pulls toward authentic connection, subscribe for more stories like these. Comment below, what's the hidden letter in your life?